Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
And my name is Tyler. Together we make up Kovray, a couple that loves to play board games.
And today we're going to tell you our favorite games for the month of August. Now, this was a particularly difficult month because we played over 45 different games.
Yeah,
and a lot of
busy
those
board game month.
We played more than once.
And there was a lot of new games, of course, as well, because as some of you may know, we had gone to Gen Con at the start of the month.
So we played lots of games there, and then we played a lot of games when we got back. And it was just a lot of sharing the joy of games with our friends, with our families, and yeah.
It really was. If you want to know more about the games that we played, you can actually head on over to our Patreon, I suppose. That's a good way to get in on the discussion about the games that we played out through the month, and yeah.
Exactly. Well, without further ado, we're going to kick it off. This was a difficult time, and somehow we have crossovers.
Of course we have crossovers.
Because we have similar tastes.
Exactly.
So we are going to throw in an honorable mention because it must be done. And this honorable mention is...
My Island.
Now, the reason it's an honorable mention is because we completed the 24 games of My Island, the campaign, and we didn't just play it with 2 people.
Played it with 4. We actually bought an extra copy of this game and sent it to our friends as a gift, and we hopped on a video call and played it together simultaneously.
Yeah, we started in January, and we just finished a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was a joy. Lots of fun to be had. What did you think of My Island?
It was a lot of fun. I think, actually, I will toss this out there that I did prefer my city over My Island, but it did give similar vibes, and the ramp up to the end was quite intense. Not to give away any spoilers, but the end chapters felt like a lot. Which is kind of what you can expect, I guess, from a Legacy game, at least from my experience. And yeah, that's all I'll say.
I'll give you a hint. Once you see numbers, make sure those numbers disappear as fast as possible.
It'll help.
It will help.
Anyways, that is My Island. Now let's move on to our top 5. Our
number 5.
You heard that right.
That's right. We have the same number 5, and that is...
Yokohama. Look how beautiful this cover is.
So this is a reprint of an older version. It's new art, new components, but the heart of the game is still the same.
There's a lot of components and a lot of boards in this game, which actually made for quite the experience. And I'm excited to try it again because the way that you shape out the pyramid really determines the paths that you're able to take.
And we played this at full 4-player count, and it was really interesting because in this game you essentially place your meeples around, and then you move your president, and where your president is, you'll take that action. But then the people there disappear.
Yes.
So the more that you have, the better the actions that you do, and you're just trying to collect resources, you're trying to insert influence, you're trying to do all the different things in the best way possible to score the most points.
Yeah, it was very interesting deciding whether or not to take a specific action based on how many meeples you had there or assistants you had there, and then, or alternatively, going for that route where you're just like, I'll place a worker here, an assistant here to eventually go there. It's just not the right time.
Not the right time.
The one thing I will say, and the last thing I will say about this game is I did feel like I was very behind when it came close to endgame. I managed to catch up. I didn't win, but it did feel slightly defeating to see my score where it was compared to a couple of the other players we were with. But I got there, and the game was actually pretty close, so I won't complain. But that is essentially why it is not higher on my list.
Fair. I will say the cards in this game are really crucial. The abilities that I had let me do quite a lot, and I did end up winning. I squeaked in the win.
Yeah. Anyways, that's Yokohama.
Let's
go on to my 4th or your 4th?
Your number 4.
My number 4. All right, it's right in front of us here, and it's called Rock Hard 1977. This is a great game from Devere where you're basically trying to make it big as an artist. You'll get different characters who have asymmetrical abilities, and you'll work towards being essentially like a barista, or you'll have some sort of job, and you'll work your way to eventually not having to do that anymore because your music is making it big.
Because you're a rock star.
Exactly.
What I liked about this game is how thematic it was.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing stuff at every part of the day, and then sometimes if you are up too late at night, you can't do stuff during the day because you're a little bit need some more extra rest.
Maybe if you celebrated too hard after a big win or something.
Maybe you had a little bit too much candy.
Exactly. Yeah, the one thing I'll say about this game that Ilya just mentioned is that it's separated into like 3 different time periods, and you have to like very, very actively think about what you can do in the morning, in the day, and in the night. And those things can kind of overlap, but also like intertwine with one another. And you have to plan ahead for those types of situations. I found it very, very thinky, but also it flowed extremely smoothly.
Everything made sense. There's a lot of cards, there's a lot of components, but it all fits in quite well. And once you're playing, you really feel like you're in the game.
Exactly.
I really liked it.
Yeah, that's Rock Hard 1977. Let's move on to your number 4.
My number 4. My number 4 is Sparks. So this game, you only have 4 turns.
Yeah, sounds like not a lot.
It does not sound a lot, but there's a lot that happens in these 4 turns. So it's a dice drafting game where you'll take the dice and you'll assign them to building different robots, different things on your board in hopes of scoring the most points. Now, you have animal critters who are your assistants and kind of help you out to do everything. As you keep playing the game, there's more and more that you can do, which is really exciting. And the dice that you choose, you'll have to choose them strategically because everybody else gets to take dice too. So even when it's not your turn, you'll take dice, you'll do different things. And it was really interesting to discover. At first, when we read the rule book and saw that it was only 4 turns each, we were like, wait a minute, is this a mistake? Is this round 1?
Yes.
But after playing it, we saw how much of the game really unravels, and there's a lot of strategic depth to it as well. So I'm really excited of how this one turned out, hence it being my number 4.
Yeah, I mean, it's like an engine builder too, so the round 1 feels very quick, but then round 2 is a bit longer, 3 and 4 is, they're longer as you progress through the game, and that kind of helps you almost. I really like the engine builders when they do this is because it eases you into the game and also allows for like a lot of discovery that you can then just play off as you move through the game.
And that's Sparks. Sparks.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about my number 3, and it's become one of my favorite games, at least this month, to introduce to people that we like have over for game night. It's a good like starter game, I think. It's called Festival. And it's basically a interesting like contract fulfillment game where you're putting on a firework festival and you want to essentially do it the best out of all the cities that are competing or players. The neat thing about this game is that each player has a stack of tiles that they put on the right side of their board, and that means every player has access to 2 different piles. And on your turn, you're able to take from either of those piles. And then, of course, there's a couple other things that you can do, but that's the gist of the game. And I just found it very, very, like, refreshing to see a different style of draft that also was simple, easy to teach, and also, like, provided a bit of think for me. It was pretty cool.
I really like the art direction in this game. It feels really different than anything else
Yes.
I've seen on the table, so it's really fun to see all the fireworks come to life. But it's also neat because your player board has their own color and pattern you're looking for, and the higher you stack, the more points you get, so there's a lot of layers of puzzles in this game.
That was the next thing I was going to say.
But it's very simple, and I also really thoroughly enjoyed this one.
There's almost, it's basically like, feels like there's immediate scoring and then end of game scoring, which really like sparks or feeds your happiness, feeds the joy.
Everybody loves the joy.
Dopamine hits.
Feed the joy.
Anyways, that's Festival and my number 3.
Now my number 3 and Tyler's number 2 is
this beautiful game called Intarsia.
Now in this game, you'll be woodworking to rebuild a new cafe in, I believe, Paris.
Is it based in Paris? Oh yeah, Paris.
And Perry? So, and it's a classic Michael Kiesling game with a lot of immediate scoring and endgame scoring. It gives those Azul vibes.
Yeah.
But basically, you're using cards to get pieces onto your board. And the more pieces that you get, the closer you get to that finishing that floor and getting that table on the board, the more immediate points you'll score.
Yes.
But then there's also endgame scoring that you have to kind of keep in mind. And that balance, that intricate balance between immediate and endgame scoring is just the thing you love.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's so fun.
Yeah. It almost feels like an engine build too when you are collecting those cards, because you collect one, but if you collect one of the same, then you score all of the same cards again.
Yeah.
So you can get a lot of points from that. And like Ilya said, is you kind of have to balance that with, do I do that or do I go for the end game bonuses, which also score you quite a bit of points.
And I do think where this game does shine, and I'm curious if you think this, is I like the player interaction in it, because you're racing for all those goals, and sometimes those goals are imperative to scoring you a lot of points, but you can take those away from others.
Yeah.
And especially playing in a 4-player game, like that really shined in my perspective.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a negative experience for sure, but it's one of those things that like my favorite type of player interaction is like when players are always thinking like their best interest in their game is to do a certain thing, but unintentionally it impacts the other players, and I think that's what this does great. So it's very good to be able to be like, I'm not like, here, take that, but I'm more like, I'm gonna do this, and sorry, but also not sorry.
Exactly. It was a lot of fun. I'm excited to play it more. It's funny because we brought this game a few times to play it, but we haven't ended up playing it.
Ah, I know.
So I feel like this is due for many, many plays in the next little bit here.
It's just so satisfying, like
So
the pieces
satisfying.
and everything like that.
Oh, they're all wooden.
It's so beautiful.
All wooden.
Yeah. If you are looking for like a game that, like an Azul game that's almost, I think, a step above Azul for sure. It's a bit more puzzly.
Yeah.
Or a bit more involved, I guess. I would say Intarsia is definitely the game that you need to check out.
Definitely.
Now on to Ilya's second, and actually my number one.
Which is?
Forest Shuffle! This game actually is not that new. So I only say that because like all the games we've played are like probably Gen Con releases, if not like...
True.
Yeah, I guess they all are, right?
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Not quite, but pretty close.
Most, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Or their pre-releases or whatever it might be. But anyways, Forest Shuffle is a little older. It does have the Alpine expansion now out, and they've announced their newest expansion. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. They're releasing it at Essen at least, I think.
There's a new expansion.
There's a new expansion in the works. Anyways, the reason why Forest Shuffle is our number one. Well, my number one. Why is it your number two?
It's my number two. Well, the Forest Shuffle is just a classic. I really enjoyed it for multiple reasons. Number one, it's very simple. You play a card or you draw two cards. That's the essence of the game.
Yeah.
The complexity is really in those cards and how they come out, but that's really fun to discover because every player can discover that for themselves as they play the game.
Yes.
Now, second part is I love how gorgeous the game ends up looking, because all of a sudden your table is sprouting beautiful little trees. All the trees have little critters and little plants on them, and they bring you a lot of points. And you know I love when games score a lot of points. This is a game you can score 300, 400 points in.
That is very true. Yeah, one of my favorite parts I just touch on is that there's a lot of layers to this game. When you're first playing this game, it is really about just reading the cards. Figuring out what cards do what and how they score is always very interesting. And then you kind of start to develop a little bit of a strategy. Game 2 comes around, and now you're like really maybe honed in on one specific strategy, trying to see how well you can do with it. And then game 3, 4, 5, however many it is, you then end up maybe paying attention to like what other people are doing, maybe branching off into different strategies, because every strategy, in my opinion, is very good unless it's contested. Because once you have that contest for different cards, then you start losing points for yourself because you're way too like focused in on one, or the points are just spread out almost evenly. And I found that very, very cool.
The other thing I'll add too is now with the expansion, there's just so much more variety in what you can do, and I think where you can lean into which cards you really want to focus in on. So it really is the moment of like, where do you want to go in this game of Forest Shuffle? And you can really make it what you want it to be. You can really focus on your own board, not care about what anybody else is doing, or you can really focus on everybody else and see how you can contest and be part of that whole larger ecosystem.
Yes, it is like quite a well, I wouldn't say quite a heavier game. It's like a mid-weight game that I think for just being cards is quite fantastic to see it all play out.
Yep.
And yeah, like you said, the expansions just add and elevate it a bit more, and I'm excited to see where this game goes. I'll say this right now, that this game would be like top 10 of all time for me, hands down, for sure.
I think me too. Where on the top 10? I'm not sure. But it is definitely one of our favorite games in general.
Yeah.
And as a special announcement for you, there is a scoring app that's coming for
I
Shuffle.
totally forgot about that.
We
Yeah.
have been lucky enough to be able to test it for you and help go through that whole process. But it's really cool because all you do is you essentially log your game and then you take pictures or like scan the cards and it'll create little pockets for you. It'll do all the points for you, make it super easy. You can look back and see how you've done in the past. You can look at your scores. You can compare scores. You can share those scores with your friends.
Yeah.
And the app will be coming, I believe, around Essen, and it'll be free of use, which makes the Forest Shuffle experience that much better.
Because scoring is definitely daunting when you're scoring like 200-300 points.
Exactly.
Anyways, that's Forest Shuffle. My number 1, Ilya's number 2, which means we're missing one game.
One game. Now, my number 1 game for the month of August is Spectacular.
What'd you call it? Spectacular.
Of course, it's my number 1 game of August. Now, I'll keep this short and simple. Chili Fox is back with another hit, and there's 3 reasons I like this game. Number 1, you can play with up to 6 people, and the games take only about 20 minutes.
20 to 30, that's what it says on the box.
So it's really quick, and it actually is 20 to 30 minutes. So it's really fun to be able to play such a strategy game with a lot of layers of different scoring in such a short span of time.
Yeah.
Now, the reason it's so fast, and my second reason why I really enjoy this game, is simultaneous play. Each turn, you'll draft a tile, you draft a dice from the 2 different sections, and you place them on your board. You want to collect different animals, you want to make sure you have groups of the same, you want to make sure there's breeding that's happening with the animals. You want to make sure there's points. You want to make sure there's watchtowers. What are they called? Watchtowers?
I think watchtowers, yeah.
So there's a lot of layers, lots of fun scoring, and it's a great time. And the third reason I love this game is because of the many, many points you can score. There's a lot of different strategies. There's a lot of scalability. There's also objectives you can play with optionally. So this game just has a lot in it, and it's just such a joy to experience. It is really, truly spectacular.
Yeah, I think the one, just because it's not on my list at all, I will say that maybe if we had played it a little bit more, it would have made it. Scoring is difficult in this game. I think that there's like a lot of math and a lot of like counting to make sure you get it all, and that can kind of be a daunting thing. But that doesn't put aside the fact that I really did enjoy this game. Again, 20 to 30 minutes. To play a mid to heavyweight game in, well, what I would call mid.
I don't think it's heavy.
I think it's probably just a midweight game, but it's crunchy, and you can play it in that short of a time. It pulls from different mechanics, from like King Domino to like Sushi Go to all those like drafting and the multipliers that are going on. It's cool to see. Of course, I mean, it happens in a lot of games, but it's cool to see these mechanics be trickle into other games, but also like elevate the crunchiness of it, and that's what I think Spectacular does quite well.
It's also gorgeous.
Everybody I love a simultaneous draft.
It's a lot of fun.
Simultaneous.
It's a lot of fun. And that is Spectacular, my number 1 game of August.
Wow.
So this was a hard list to go through.
This was, yeah. There was some games that I definitely... It's interesting when we do these lists, especially when they're bigger, because there are some games that are very, like, situational. Like, one game that comes to mind, I guess it's kind of like an honorable mention, is, like, Oh My Pigeons. And that one was a lot of fun. I don't think it would ever make it into a top 5 for me. No offense to the game, but it's just, like, not my type of game. But it's very fun when you are looking for a goofy game to play with friends. friends.
Maybe
right?
you should limit yourself to your type of game.
Well, I have a broad spectrum of games that I enjoy, and that is one of them. Just I wouldn't gravitate to it if you gave me a giant pile of games.
I don't know. You've been showing it to everybody.
Yeah, because I think they would enjoy it.
Now, since Tyler gets an honorable mention, I will get one as well.
Ooh.
Mine was Odin. It's a really fun little card game that caught me by surprise, and it's something I want to play more and more of.
Oh, I crushed you.
It was really close to making my top 5 list. It was that close.
Yeah, that one was a good game.
It's a good game.
It is. I also will add that it is tough when there's 45 games to pick from.
That we played multiple times each.
Exactly. When I think in July there was only like 20, so it was a bit easier to narrow down.
Yeah.
But that's what's exciting about our months and our playing board games, and I look forward to actually doing these discussions, and I hope you do too. So.
Now, for our question of the day, what game in August did you play that you've enjoyed?
Exactly. Seems pretty straightforward, right?
Tell us what about it you really enjoyed. Maybe it was just the friends you played with or the best company and the game was meh.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
sometimes the
that's
people
what it is.
Are what makes the game.
Yeah, the experience is better than the actual...
Sometimes you play it again and you're like, oh, I didn't play that with Tyler. It wasn't as fun.
Yeah. There are just some games like that. I'm a fun guy to play games with. Anyways, if you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you are new here. We do this monthly wrap up every month.
Every month.
Yeah. So you'll see us again in end of September.
Will we play a lot of games in September?
Who knows?
Maybe. Hopefully.
Yeah. I might be away for a bit, so who knows?
Digital games.
Exactly. Anyways, until next time, we will see you in the next one.
Bye.